Mommispace, a place where you can remember who you are in the midst of it all. This podcast gives moms of all stages a voice to share their experiences and the truth that there is no right way to mom.
Here we go. Here we go. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. The arms that hold you now bring a fire.
Welcome back to Mommispace. This is Bree, and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 featuring foster care and adoption. Today, I get to talk with yet another friend from Instagram. This is very exciting. I know all of you are probably like, whatever, Bree, we know you have some new friends on Instagram. Let's get over it. But seriously, this is kind of changing my life. The way you can connect with people on this platform that doesn't just feature highlight reels. Isn't that amazing? Anyways, I just wanted to first start off by sharing that this season is specific to foster care and adoption. But before I started doing seasons, I actually talked with a handful of mamas who had already been walking through this specific area of life. And I wanted to give them a little shout out. So if you're looking for more moms to connect with or to hear more stories from mamas who are going through this or have gone through it, here are some suggestions for you. The first is episode 9, way back in the day. It's not really that far back, but it feels like it. I talked with Jessica Spies, who is a foster care mama, and she has 3 kids of her own. So definitely check that out. I will link these episodes too in the show notes, so if you want to go look further. Okay, we got Sarah Schmidt, episode 23, who is a mama to her own son, but she actually placed 2 babies into adoption when she was younger. So that is actually a very fascinating and really beautiful perspective in regards to adoption. Another episode similar to that is episode 36 with Ashley Mitchell, who is a prominent voice in specifically with adoption placement. She helps the mamas who have gone through that, who have placed children into foster care adoption. So that's actually really amazing too. Okay, episode 31 is Jamie Fredericks, who adopted 2 kiddos from Africa. That's a fascinating story. And then Carrie Allen, who is also going through a similar process, which is episode 33. And the last one I have on here is episode 41 with my friend Aubrey Coots, who has 3 little kiddos she's fostering to adopt. And that is just a really precious story. So I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're looking for more, there's more in addition to what I'll be bringing you this month, which will be amazing. Trust me. If you have wanted to do foster care, if you've been curious in any way, I will be surprised if there aren't some of you who finally decide or make a decision after listening to a couple of these episodes. So without further ado, here is episode 2. Welcome back to Mommispace. I am so excited to dive in again to this season of focusing specifically on foster care and adoption. Today, I am talking to Kate Rallis. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay, me too. We met through Instagram, and I think that's probably how I met most of the moms I'm going to interview for this season, which is really exciting. Anyways, you're just such a fun person to watch just in general, but seeing your story from afar and hearing, the vulnerable moments that you're so willing to share has been so encouraging and inspiring in even my stage of life. So yeah, I would love for you, if you would just start out, tell us about yourself, tell us about your family, and maybe just dive into how your motherhood journey began.
Sure. Well, first, thanks for those nice things you said.
Of course. Well, you can pay me later.
That's so sweet.
So.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. There is such thing as Instagram currency, right?
Oh, shoot. I didn't even know.
I don't know either. I don't know how it works, but we'll figure it out. And then when we do, I'll pay you.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. So my motherhood journey started kind of funny. When I was in high school, I really was sure that I was going to adopt someday. And I don't know why there wasn't really a precipice for it. There wasn't a class where we talked about it, or there wasn't really anybody in my life that I knew at that time that had any relationship with adoption, or at least that I was aware of.
Wow.
But I just knew. And one of my very best friends, Jason, also planned to adopt when he grew up and, had children and a family and all those things. And so we had known each other since childhood, and one day over being burritos, which was a common thing, or just talking about our future plans and goals. And he was getting ready to graduate from high school. And so it was kind of that time where like you're planning for what's next. And we were talking about college and goals after that. And he just said, I really haven't told anybody this, but I want to adopt someday. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the same. I haven't told anybody that either. Wow. And, yeah. And we had been such close friends for 15 years at that point. We met in like the second grade.
What? Wow.
Yeah. And we're on the drum line together. And like, he dated all of my girlfriends, and he was just my buddy. He was my buddy. And so for him to confess that to me and confide in me, and me to do the same, felt so special. And so over burritos at Velarde's Mexican restaurant, we made a pact to be in each other's weddings and just forever always be like a supportive anchor for each other. In that adoption journey and just in like the family life journey.
Wow.
The joke on us was that we would just marry each other and have children and adopt kids.
That is the best.
So that worked out. We made a promise to each other before we ever really knew what that was going to mean. So, yeah. So really my motherhood journey started out with a burrito between me and my unknown future husband.
Oh my gosh, what a cool story.
I know, it's really fun. So yeah, that's really how foster and adoption started. But my journey through motherhood from there was not an easy one. So I actually am a survivor of sexual assault and trauma. Wow. And with that came a miscarriage. And so I was 17 turning 18 and had this terrible, horrific miscarriage. And really just went through hell and back for many, many years to follow. Wow. And finally, when we did get married, of course, I'm skipping a lot of parts here, but lots of things happened between, first miscarriage and husband that I never thought was going to be my husband. Yeah. And Jason was very much a part of that journey. But when we got married and started to plan for our family, we really wanted kids right away for a lot of reasons. But one, just because we had known each other our whole lives. Wow. So there wasn't this get to know you period. Totally. It was just we've been doing that for 20 years. So let's just get on with the show. And so we started trying pretty quickly. I text all my closest girlfriends on our honeymoon and was like, how soon do you know if you're
oh my gosh, no
I
way.
took sex ed. I don't know why my brain stopped working on my honeymoon. But even we went to get a couples massage, and the lady was having me fill out this form, and one of the questions was any chance you're pregnant? It's 2 days into our marriage, my husband saved himself for our marriage, and it's 2 days in, and I'm maybe. So I don't know. Can I still get a massage? And I'm WebMDing myself and Googling because I'm sure I'm pregnant 24 hours. And oh my gosh. So to say that I was ready for children is an understatement. Yeah. So we started trying very quickly, and then very quickly realized that was going to be a difficult thing for us. So we had several miscarriages. And eventually my doctor recommended that we try some fertility treatments. And that's how we got pregnant with our first, and really felt like that was just such a huge miracle, and that we would be so lucky if we just had this one biological child. Wow. And his pregnancy wasn't without complications, and just, it was tough. My body just didn't like being pregnant and didn't like kind of that whole process. Wow. So we had him, and when he was about 18 months old or so, that call to adopt really became very intense for us. for a lot of reasons. My in-laws were a big part of that, and I can share that in a moment. But we were sitting at a stoplight with our baby boy, or almost toddler, in the back seat, and we had this conversation of like, okay, it's time. Let's start the classes for foster care. Let's see where this takes us. And we went home that night and found out, surprise, we were expecting.
No way.
Yes.
What are the chances?
I
That is
know.
amazing. Wow.
I know. And so, plot twist. So, we still pursued foster care while pursuing this pregnancy, but very quickly realized that I needed to give everything to this pregnancy if it was going to survive. And he did. He was born premature, and our son came, and it was really made clear shortly after that my body was done.
Yeah.
And so I elected to, become sterile, essentially. There's like really no soft way of saying that.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer able to conceive, and that just completely freed me of like the emotional burden of what if and the mom guilt and the like, but I want to nurse and I want to have more, and I should biologically, this like feeling of like shoulding myself, of like, or like shoulding my uterus, really, of like, you should be better at this, you should want this, you should be able to function this way. And my body was like, or maybe just go adopt some kids.
Wow.
So that's really kind of from point A to point B how we got to foster care. There were influences and other things that kind of were woven into that, but ultimately that's my own personal like womb and motherhood story to get there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so sad that there's like a time limit on this thing, because I have so many things. I'm like, well, what about this? And what about, like, I love it. It's just so amazing to hear each story, and yours is definitely an amazing one. So thank you for going there with that.
Thank you.
So yeah, why don't you just go ahead and keep the story rolling? What's your foster care story?
So my in-laws, my husband was a pastor. He worked at a church for about 10 years, and for about 4 years of that was a youth pastor. One day at church, I think that we had our oldest son, Nolan, but had not yet become pregnant with Calvin. And a social worker came to the church one day and said, we have this need for 6 children to be placed in a home. Do you know anybody with a house big enough to accommodate that, with 2 kids per room? And Jason just immediately thought of his mom and stepdad. They lived only a mile away from us, and the church was between our 2 homes. And so he called them up, and they, without much hesitation, said, oh yeah, definitely, we'll do this.
Oh my gosh.
So they I started foster care classes, and I think it was maybe an emergency certification so that they could get the placement. Not quite sure, but I'm remembering it that way. I might be wrong. But anyways, so those children actually didn't get placed with them, but the ball was already put in motion. So they said yes, and they weren't going back on it. And so they eventually got certified, and we were house sitting for them right when they got certified, and they were on a vacation. And here I am with little Nolan, and we're watching their dogs and hanging out at their house while they're gone. And I was screening the voicemails of all these cases coming through of children that needed a home. And there was like a child that was like a burn victim, and a child that was blind. Because of course my in-laws are the people who are like, we'll take the most difficult to place children. Like they're those people. Like they just have incredible hearts. Yeah. And so I'm hearing this, and I remember like weeping, listening to the voicemails over and over. And my job was to like call them and tell them like, hey, here's all these, cases and opportunities. You need to call the social worker. But I couldn't even pull it together, because I remember standing there thinking like, I'm not afraid of this. And like everything on paper and logically and in my brain and all the fears that I have as a human person tell me I should be, but like none of this is scary to me. And Jason had that same sense of peace. So fast forward, they get a sibling group of 3 that were all right around our son Nolan's age. And so he was going to their house every day while we were going to work, and being like raised with these 3 extra kids.
Oh my gosh.
And so like foster care became a very intimate a part of our lives very quickly. And so that is what really pointed us to foster care, because we weren't sure if it would be foster adopt or if we would do like a private adoption, international adoption. But that made it very clear to us very quickly where we needed to go. So yeah, they really kind of set that example, and we followed. We worked with the same agency, and we since have had several of our friends go work with that same agency and adopt children. So it's just been incredible. But yeah, so we did that. We had 2 girls that were placed at different times. First, we had a daughter who was 6, and she was with us for about 6 months. And then she was moved to a therapeutic setting. It was very, very difficult to have our first placement moved. And of course, as you've learned by following me online, we're real protective of our baby's stories. So I won't go into detail there, but it was really necessary that she be put in an environment that, could therapeutically be available to certain needs that we couldn't, be available to. And then that happened again. We had a preteen. She turned, I think, 12 or 13 in our home. And about the same amount of time, I think she was with us a little longer. But it was really kind of like an older version of our first daughter. And so we kind of went through the same thing again. She was moved into a therapeutic setting. Then we took a break because we were like, well, we weren't afraid, but now we're terrified. And we really had to work through really forgiving ourselves for not being able to adopt these 2 girls. And, really accepting what we called at the time failures. We've since grown and learned and had so much grace shared with us and love and understanding from foster workers and or social workers and just other people in the foster and adoptive community to say like, no, you loved them through a season into where they needed to be next. And to you, in your ego and in your selfishness of wanting to like adopt them and in your love for them, you feel like you let them down and failed them. But the reality is like you were a safe place and a safety net at the time they needed that. And I will say the same thing to any other parent, but I'll tell you, I still every day wonder, could we have done more? Are they okay now? We get updates occasionally, but it was very heartbreaking. But we were familiar with loss, so we knew how to grieve and we knew how to come together as a couple. And so we did that. And then our son Zayden moved in, and then our daughter Poppy, and the day before Zayden was adopted, or 2 days before Zayden was adopted, Poppy joined our family.
Oh my goodness.
And, yes. And so in a matter of a year, we went from Nolan and Calvin, our biological boys, to Nolan, Calvin, Poppy, and Zayden, and they are all stacked on top of each other. So their ages right now is Nolan's 8, Calvin is 6, Poppy is 6. She's 3 weeks younger than Calvin.
Oh my goodness.
And then Zayden is 5. He's 3 months younger than Poppy.
What? That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it's a full house. It's a full house.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah.
That's amazing. Now, did you guys went into it wanting to specifically foster to adopt, right? Because I know that there's differences there with just being a placement home as opposed to, okay, well, if they need a forever home, we'll be that for them.
Yeah.
So
There's actually a lot of ways to kind of refine your profile is what it's referred to within kind of, especially if you work with an agency. And so our profile in the beginning was very open. We'll take any child, any age. Yes. And if they can't stay forever, that's okay. And, with the hope always of like, but we hope to adopt. Yeah. And I think something that we had to reconcile and accept about ourselves is that there's a version of this that we wanted to be really romantic about and not completely honest about, because we wanted to believe that we were the type of people who could have children come live with us and become our children and not be there forever. And the reality was at that season in our lives, especially with sons at home who were going through the trauma of having sisters come and then leave and not understanding that, we realized, and even for our own hearts, that like, we're not the people that we're pretending we are. And so instead of forcing something and then like inviting heartbreak, we need to show up where we know we can, because, accepting that we can't do this is very difficult, and we feel like we're letting down all these potential foster kids.
Wow.
But at the same time, like, we need to be able to be healthy, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that we can give everything to a child. And if we're living in fear that they're not going to stay, we're not appropriate parents. We're not giving them what they deserve. That was hard to realize, because you want to be everything for everybody. And so we had to kind of get over this complex that it was about us.
Wow.
And it's not.
Wow.
So that's a big lesson early on. And so then we refined our profile and said, okay, under this certain age, you know, these are the needs that we can accommodate, and these are the needs that our home just wouldn't be a good fit for. You know, even like some physical needs, we felt like if a child was in a wheelchair, we had really narrow hallways. So it was something we had to consider, that like, we want to say yes, but we physically can't accommodate that.
Right.
So there were like funny little things like that.
Wow.
And then one of them being, we said we need, if TPR hasn't happened, we need it to be a part of the plan. And TPR is the parental termination of parental rights.
Okay.
So it's where there's a court hearing,
Yeah.
and the first parent's rights are revoked, sadly.
Okay.
And so we needed the cases to be that far enough along that was a discussion or an option at that point.
Okay.
So that we had some security in knowing that the kids had a high likelihood of staying forever.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I would love for you to share even a little bit, like, kind of the journey you're on now, because one of
Sure.
the fun parts of watching your family is that you are traveling a lot and you don't live in a
What
normal
are we
home.
doing?
But I would love for you to share that, because now you have 4 kids. Is Poppy officially adopted then with you guys now at this point?
Yeah, she
Wow.
is. So I'm not sure how it works in other states, but I can pretty confidently say you can't leave your state officially with a child without
Okay.
being accused of kidnapping if they're not
that's fair.
adopted.
That's
So
fair.
in her case, we had to even actually petition the court to get permission to leave the county.
Wow.
So one time we went to Disneyland before she was adopted, and we had to go to court to have that approved. So some pretty strict rules. So everybody's adopted. It's all on the up and up. We're kind of, we even decertified before hitting the road, just to really have that clean break with foster care, to make sure that there just weren't any question marks for anybody. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us, like, then how you even came to this conclusion of, like, hey, let's pack up the family and, like, live on the road. And
Sure.
And then I would love to hear too then where you guys are at with foster care and adoption at this stage in your life.
Sure. So 2016, I believe it was, is when we started to really examine our lives very closely. For a long time, we were kind of staring at our own navels, in the sense of like our own emotional needs, just trying to, I don't like to use the word survive, but it's fitting here, to survive those early years of parenthood. And then trauma parenting and special needs parenting. And there was a lot going on just from a parental perspective. But then I also, as I mentioned, had trauma as a teenager, and I didn't really deal with that until I became a mother.
Wow.
And so I was going through my own legal battle. I was going through about 4 years of very intense therapy. And about halfway through, kind of looked at our lives, Jason and I, and went, okay, we're each working 60 to 70-hour weeks. We're paying crazy amounts of money to have our children away from us all day, to be appropriately cared for and educated. We miss each other. We miss our kids. And that feeling, the more healing I experienced, the more change I knew was coming. But for a while, we thought that was actually going to be our marriage changing. We were not well. We were not healthy. We were suffering and struggling, and in silence, because we were in ministry.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of pretending and shame and pressure, and mostly put on ourselves by ourselves.
Sure.
Like we did that.
Yeah.
But it was enough to kind of get us to this breaking point where we said, okay, if everything went away today, these incredible careers and promotions and the money and if all we had in the house, and just like, if everything went away and all we had left was each other, where would we want to be in life? And we actually couldn't answer that question except for together.
Yeah.
And that was, maybe to some people would sound really devastating and lost, but for us was like the most incredible gift. We'd been in the same small town our whole entire lives. It's where I endured my trauma. It's where he'd worked in ministry our whole adult lives. And we just got to the point where we realized we crave freedom in ways that we can't even access right now. And it's possible. So let's just go get it. And so originally it wasn't to travel. We thought, let's just relocate. Let's figure out where we want to go. Let's find a new town or state. And then we looked at a map and we're like, so where do we go? Like
all the places.
Right. When you're not moving for a job, when a job isn't calling you somewhere, it's kind of overwhelming. And so we were like, well, let's go see. And that's literally how we started traveling. So our journey is not to be nomads forever, not to travel forever, but we're actively searching for our next community.
Amazing.
And it's really fun to do that. It's very scary, but it's super fun. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So that's, if you haven't wanted to jump on and follow Kate on Instagram for any other reason yet, which you'd be crazy not to, that would definitely be a good one. You guys are just so good at like talking about it and sharing the highlights and the lowlights. And yeah, I just really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. I have like a vulnerability hangover every morning after.
Oh, dude, for sure. I get that.
Oh my God.
You're like, is it too late to delete that and for people not to see? Yeah.
Would anybody not know? Because when we all, like, it's just so funny. We all crave authenticity and we all want vulnerability and we call it out in each other. And then we get on social media and I'm like, but I'm gonna just filter myself a little, because if I'm too vulnerable, maybe I'll weird people out. But like, I've just resolved to be okay with that because it's gonna work for someone, and maybe that person needs it more than someone else.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so where are you guys then in your journey with foster care and adoption at this stage?
Yeah, bring us all the babies.
Oh.
Not really.
Yeah.
So we are in no position currently because we like to call our camper our home, but the reality is like we don't have a home. So we probably need like a fixed mailbox on a curb and like things like that before we're in that position again. But all 4 of our children have various special needs. And so we're at like the level of overwhelm and exhaustion that like is reasonable for 2 adults right now. And it's all so good and beautiful, but like it's plenty and enough and we're content.
Yeah.
But we like to talk like long run, like maybe when our kids are in high school or they're heading off to college, we'll be foster parents, not adopt. But we would like to kind of go back and see if we really are those people, but that it's not yet, So something we say a lot is this is not mine or it's not yet. And so it doesn't mean it's never going to happen. It's something we'd really love to be a part of someday. But in the meantime, we've helped taught some trainings for foster care classes. We've done some public speaking. And so that's kind of the way that we give back now and stay involved in that community. But yeah, it's not something we're actively seeped in at the moment, except for raising 2 children that have been adopted.
Yeah. Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
I love this. What's one thing that you would want to educate people on who have little to no knowledge of foster care and adoption?
Oh, this is such a good question. There's so many things that I think I could just like fire hose information at people.
Yeah.
And none of it would actually matter. What like my heart is all about for anyone who is considering foster care or adoption or just observing it from a distance is that there is absolutely no requirement to be perfect to do this. None. In fact, the state and the people that are involved and the judges and the foster care workers really encourage you to not be perfect. They want you to be real people. With real life experiences to like help inform your ability to parent kids that have been trauma.
Wow.
And so I think so often we go in with this misconception because like I said in the beginning, you can't help but have a little bit of an ego about yourself and think it's actually about you and your desires and your needs and like your family growth. And with that comes this idea of like, well, therefore I have to have it all together.
Interesting.
turning 32 this month, and like I don't have anything figured out. I mean, like most days maybe, but I'm still figuring it out. And
Yeah.
the state of California has trusted me with two human beings.
Wow. Yeah.
So if they've trusted me, they'll trust most people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's
Wow.
like the standard is not be perfect, it's be compassionate, be be intentional, be committed, be passionate, be an advocate, but you don't have to be perfect. So if anybody's waiting
Yeah.
on perfection or is like trying to refine their lives and get to, it's like how you work towards
Yeah.
retirement. Like, okay, well, when I get the promotion and then I get the house and then I get some people will build toward foster care like that. And like to that, I say like, just refuse that in your life and it will become a much more joyful and like lovely experience if you can just strip away that like try hard mentality.
That's so good. That's so encouraging too. I mean, you can apply that in most areas of life, but I think even especially in motherhood, because it's so true. Like it's refreshing one to hear that that's where the government is at and what they're looking for. But also, yeah, just such a sweet reminder to all mamas, like you are required to just bring yourself, and that's like the whole space of like where you learn to grow and like teach is by messing up and cleaning it up, so I just so appreciate that viewpoint and that perspective.
It's really true. When we were talking through foster care trainings with other people that were just kind of coming out of interest or to learn more to see if they were a good quote fit, and there's no one size. They'd be like, well, what if I have addiction in my past? And I'd be like, hi, me too. Well, what if I've been diagnosed with a mental illness? And I'm like, hi, queen of PTSD. Like, just keep them coming, lady. Like
That's so
the reality is, like, what if I've had handcuffs on before? And I'm like, yep. So it's not there. Like the reality is when I say you can be imperfect, I'm not talking about just like you cuss once in a while or like you like dislike your mother-in-law on Mondays. Like this is very real imperfections in real life because we all have a history and a past and a life. And it's like good to bring that with you as long as you've learned from it and grown from it and healed. And like the beauty that comes from that is so incredible. And it's something that we all should be bringing to the table in our lives everywhere. But man, even more so when we're bringing children into our families.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that.
Sorry, I think I soapboxed there for
Girl,
a second.
preach. I love that stuff. No, it's so cool. I love when I can feel like whoever I'm talking to kind of hit on their passion point. It's just so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
So I guess to kind of wrap it up, like what is a high and low of your journey that you would share?
So for foster care specifically, or like the adoption and then foster care specifically?
Yeah.
Okay. So the high would be the first time with each of our adopted kids that I felt bonded with them, or that like when I sat down to snuggle them, it real deep had this like knowing of belonging to each other.
Wow.
I think a lot of people assume, can I just say, I don't like that thing that we tell adoptive parents that you're going to feel the same way about your adoptive kids as you do your biological. Like,
wow,
that is such a lie. It is such a lie, and it sets parents up for failure.
Wow.
And well, maybe it's not a lie for a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people where that has been a discouragement more than an encouragement.
I didn't even think about that. I would have totally felt, like, how do you even, wow. That's a really good point.
Just think about it. Like, if you're not birthing this child,
totally,
you haven't carried them, you haven't had prenatal appointments, they haven't literally like come from your body. There's not the endorphins that come with that, and the adrenaline and the party and the, and like nobody's like washing their hands before they visit. Like all these little things where you like tiny micro moments that build into like the caring for this person. This is very different. And these babies, a lot of them come from neglect and trauma. And then it's like, hi, here's this 3-year-old who has all these struggles, and like, you're going to solve this for them and love them into healing. But not today and not tomorrow. And maybe not in the first 5 months, and probably not in the first 5 years is this going to feel normal. But but don't worry, it feels exactly the same as if you birth a child.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm like, no,
Such a
it
good point.
super doesn't.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
for me, at least, that's been a high, and it did not come quickly at all. I'll tell you, actually, Poppy, the first time I felt that with her was about 4 months ago, and and she's
Wow.
been adopted for 2 years now, and has been with us for 3 years. So that's a significant amount of time
Wow.
to have a growing relationship with someone where, it might on the outside look like, oh, they're so close, mom and daughter and whatever. But like, if you sat down and had dinner with us, you would know that, man, the two of us have fought so hard to love each other and to connect
Wow.
and to like keep that connection open and that bond open. So yeah, that's been a high for me, and it's been a really significant one for each of my adopted kiddos, is that moment when like I knew, not just on paper, not just legally, but like, you're mine and I'm yours. And if I birthed you today, it would feel like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, and what a cool, I love that you are bringing the reality in, because I didn't even think about that. Like, that would even be something that you would have to kind of work through or grieve in the
Oh God.
beginning, like, but then also bringing but it comes. And like, it is so good when it comes like that. Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. It is good when it comes. You got to be a little bit patient.
Yeah. That's fair. That
And
makes sense.
love them through it. But man, isn't that, I think of my own mother and like the moments where I just was so unlovable and unkind and ugly toward her. And I just think, dang, she birthed me. And I
Yeah.
know for sure there were moments where Sheila was like, I don't feel like I gave birth to you right now, So, I
Totally.
mean, I can relate to that from that perspective. And I have so much empathy and compassion for families that are in the throes of that and are feeling guilt and shame for not feeling bonded as quickly as they've decided they should be.
Yeah.
It's not the child's responsibility to make that happen. It's our responsibility to be patient and wait on them.
Wow.
Nothing can be forced.
Yeah.
And so it's just a growth, they're grafting into your family. And so there's no rush, there's no forcing it. It just is. And so it's okay to kind of like hold yourself in that space of like, just, we're working on it. And that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a low part of your journey so far?
Sure. Okay. I would say there's been a lot of lows. But I think really it's the normal ones that people don't see, that are like the intimate moments when Instagram goes away and, speaking to their adoptive parents goes away, and speaking in the special needs, all that goes away. And we crawl into bed at night and we just cry and ask ourselves, what did we do? Are we ruining our children? And is this going to be okay? Like, where do we go from here? Those are the lows, not because of the pain and the questions, but because of what comes with that feeling of self-doubt. We know our truth, and we know we're good parents, and we know we're crazy about these kids, and we're not messing them up, at least so we think.
Yeah.
My children are all going to play this back in therapy someday and be like, great, she thought she wasn't messing us up. She said it on a podcast. But it's sometimes the reality just smacks you over the head, and the things you tell yourself to survive like tough things, or to like romanticize like moments. We all do it with our children, right? They're like, I mean, I had a child licking a bumper of a truck the other day that was like covered in dirt, and I just look at him and I'm like, who are you? Like,
I remember reading that post. That was so funny.
Yes. But of course it's a little thing, but like, you just laugh through those moments. But then like, there's big moments that you don't talk about publicly that are messy and traumatic. And it's when we like get in bed at night, not every night, but those are the lows, when we look at each other and are like, are we ruining people, like real people in our lives? Are we ruining them? And so that's hard, but it's not because we've adopted. That's every parent. I don't know a parent that doesn't have that conversation in bed at night, once in a while. So, good news is, again, you don't have to be perfect and have this figured out to adopt, because it's just kind of the same. It's the same thing. Your senses are a little heightened in this situation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's really good.
Yeah.
I did have a question
Yeah.
that kind of popped into mind just now. And that is like how you guys talked with your boys about your decision to do foster care. Like, what did that look like in bringing them into that?
Yeah. So there wasn't a lot of discussion because they were so little.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So yeah, our oldest I think was like right around 2, and our youngest is something like 21 months younger. So I don't do math well, but he was little.
Yeah.
And so Nolan is a brilliant kid, and so we were talking with them about like getting a new sibling, and Nolan had some rules, like didn't want anybody older than him, and of course we broke that when we had the preteen.
Yeah.
But the conversation with our boys wasn't so much as like, now we do foster care, now we adopt. It's more been something that's evolved over time about like what families look like in 2019 now,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
what the world looks like, and like we have a colorful family and we have a unique and eclectic family, and that there's a lot of that everywhere in all sorts of shapes and forms.
Yeah.
And so the conversation has been just more about like acceptance and love and inclusion than it's been specifically about adoption. Now, of course, they know about adoption, are very proud of it. I mean, they literally, it's their elevator speech. They'll introduce themselves. Like Calvin will say, if he's meeting someone new, he's our most social butterfly, and he'll say, "Hi, I'm Calvin. I'm the funniest one in the family, and I love adoption."
Oh my
And like
gosh.
that's how he like shakes your hand. It's the
Oh my
funniest thing.
word. Job done, eh,
Yeah,
Mom? That's pretty
right.
amazing.
I'm like, dude, I didn't even feed you those lines.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, tell them more about
That's
how great
so
we all
good. Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
Like elbowing him, like, and your mom's cool too,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Yeah. But they like, and Nolan, he will, I mean, you give that kid a microphone and he'll never ending, will talk about his pride for adoption and how
Oh
important it
my
is to
gosh.
him as an older brother. And that doesn't mean that these boys haven't experienced their own kind of secondary trauma because of foster care and adoption. But they've grown up with it.
Wow.
From my in-laws exposing them to it through the kids that they fostered, through us doing it very early into, their childhood. So it's never really been this big sit down. It's just like this evolving thing that's like always a part of our family. It never has not been really.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, Kate, man, this has been so good. I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you took the time. Tell everybody what you're doing, where you are right now, like just what you told me before we started talking, because the dedication, people, to get this done.
Well, so we're actually back in the same town where we were born and raised and grew up our whole lives. We came back, yeah, like full circle. We came back for the holidays. So we're still here for a couple weeks, and then we're headed back out to travel some more. But currently I'm sitting between a Starbucks and a Taco Bell in a parking lot because we were scheduled to do this. And one of my children had a rough day and was like having major meltdown. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go talk about what a great parent I am while I abandon you in the middle of your crisis. And my husband, bless Jason, he's the most gentle, wonderful person. And he was like, be safe, drive careful in the fog, just make sure, and like, he's like, I got this, just go, you're amazing. And trying to like help me not feel like such a loser mom while I'm like being yelled at and like a child's like snot down his face. And I'm like, I love you. And it's fine.
Yeah.
If I bring you a stone, can I make this go away?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I'm like sitting in my truck in a Taco Bell parking lot, and it worked.
The picture in my mind is just so perfect for this. I love it. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Seriously, I'm so grateful.
You.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. And just, I just always so appreciate anybody that asks and listens, and that, that you're willing to like have a platform and highlight for a whole month families that are, choosing this for their lives. And I think that the more we can talk about it and normalize it, the more available it is to others, I thank you for being an advocate and an ally.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you. I'm loving it so far. It's like totally pumping me up, man. So thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Please share this with a friend if it impacted you in any way, and leave a review on iTunes so other mamas can hear the truth that they are enough and they are doing their very best. Be sure to catch up on what's happening in the Mommispace community every day on Instagram at Mommispace. And you can email me at mommispace@gmail.com for questions or interview recommendations. All my love to you, Mama. You're amazing. See you next week.
Your belongings in a bag, a new bed, a new room for your head. All is new, no answers quite yet. Here we go, here we go. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. A timely arrival will put your name on the door. I'll be the face you'll know as Mama for now. Here we go, here we go. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. The arms that hold you now bring a fire. And I won't let go if you won't let go. We're here right now together. You are mine and I am yours. We choose each other. And I won't let